December 1893, Arthur Conan Doyle horrified millions of readers by doing the unthinkable. He threw Sherlock Holmes off the Reichenbach Falls, killing the world's most famous detective. But while the public mourned a fictional character, a real-life legal drama unfolded inside Edinburgh's High Court, proving reality was far more calculating than fiction. A wealthy 20-year-old army lieutenant named Cecil Hambrough lay dead from a gunshot wound to the back of his head. His aristocratic tutor, Alfred Monson, claimed it was a tragic hunting accident. He told police the boy climbed a wire fence and accidentally discharged his own shotgun. What Monson didn't realize was that the Crown had just enlisted the two medical professors who actually inspired the creation of Sherlock Holmes, Dr. Joseph Bell and Dr. Henry Littlejohn. Armed with experimental ballistics and blood spatter calculations, these two pioneers set out to prove that the laws of physics do not lie. If you believe true crime documentaries should dissect the precise friction between criminal intelligence and forensic science without the lazy copy-paste narratives, consider subscribing to EnterTheCrime. Because the true mystery of the Ardlamont case isn't how the victim died, but how a killer escaped the gallows using a controversial legal loophole that still impacts modern high society trials today. Mainstream historical true crime always makes the same mistake. They present Victorian aristocrats as symbols of refined dignity. The reality is that the late 19th century elite operated on an intricate web of hidden bankruptcies, predatory loans, and high-stakes fraud. Enter Alfred Monson. To the public, he was a sophisticated gentleman tutor, hired to prepare young Cecil Hambrough for a prestigious military career. To creditors, he was a bankrupt operator living on borrowed time. Monson's entire lifestyle relied on exploiting the financial expectations of his young pupil, whose family was drowning in debt. In May 1893, Monson executed a logistical chess move. He secured a lease on the massive 11,000-acre Ardlamont estate in Argyllshire, Scotland. He moved his family and Cecil into the secluded manor. But beneath the surface of this aristocratic playground lay a terrifying financial countdown. Monson was broke. Cecil wouldn't inherit his family fortune for another year. Just days before they traveled to the remote estate, Monson did something highly unusual. He convinced the 20-year-old lieutenant to take out two massive life insurance policies totaling £20,000. The sole beneficiary, Monson's own wife. For international viewers unfamiliar with Victorian financial dynamics, £20,000 in 1893 is the modern equivalent of over $2 million. Cecil Hambrough was worth infinitely more to his tutor dead than alive. But a professional fraudster knows you cannot simply shoot an aristocrat in broad daylight. You need an environment where nature can look like the accomplice. The mechanics of what happened on the Ardlamont estate reveal a predator who tried to execute the perfect crime not once, but twice within 24 hours. On the evening of August 9, 1893, Monson took Cecil out onto Ardlamont Bay for a night fishing excursion. Cecil could not swim. In the middle of the dark water, the boat suddenly began to rapidly sink. Monson had deliberately drilled a physical hole through the wooden hull, but the killer underestimated his victim's sheer instinct for survival. Despite the panic and the current, Cecil managed to splash his way back to the rocky shoreline. The first attempt failed. Monson did not wait for the suspicion to settle. The very next morning, August 10th, he organized a morning hunt for wild rabbits in the dense woodlands of the estate. 3 men walked into the trees that morning: Cecil Hambrough, Alfred Monson, and a mysterious associate named Edward Scott, whom Monson introduced as a financial agent. Moments later, a single deafening blast echoed through the estate woods. When the estate staff rushed to the scene, they found Cecil lying face down in the brush. A massive wound had torn through the right side of his skull, just behind the ear. Monson's explanation to the local authorities was immediate and polished. He claimed Cecil was carrying a loaded shotgun, attempted to climb over a sunken stone dike, tripped, and accidentally blew his own brains out. Local police, unaccustomed to high society homicides, initially ruled it a tragic, unfortunate accident. They let Edward Scott pack his bags and vanish into thin air. But when the insurance companies received a claim for £20,000, less than 48 hours after the funeral, the paper trail screamed murder. And that's when the real nightmare began. The Crown realized it faced a logistical catastrophe. The crime scene had been completely compromised. The local staff had already washed the victim's blood from the soil, and the physical weapon had been moved. To salvage the case, prosecutors called in the ultimate forensic weapon, Dr. Joseph Bell, the brilliant Edinburgh surgeon famed for his uncanny ability to deduce a man's entire life history just by observing the dirt on his boots. Alongside him was Dr. Henry Littlejohn, the city's pioneer of medical jurisprudence. Detectives thought they had an open and shut case based on the financial motive alone. They didn't. In a Victorian court of law, circumstantial greed was not enough to hang a gentleman. They needed physical certainty. Bell and Littlejohn used methods that were entirely revolutionary for 1893. They conducted experimental ballistics tests, firing the same model of shotgun into cardboard targets at various distances to analyze the spread of the pellets and the presence of gunpowder residue. Monson's defense argued that if Cecil shot himself, the muzzle must have been inches from his head. But Bell noticed a critical scientific contradiction. There was zero powder blackening or scorching on Cecil's skin or collar. Furthermore, the trajectory of the pellets proved the shot had traveled from behind and slightly above the victim, a physical impossibility for a self-inflicted wound while climbing a wall. To visualize the sheer precision of this 1893 forensic investigation, look at the physical evidence presented to the jury. Let's pause the narrative right here for a tactical question. If you were a member of that 1893 jury, presented with a clear $2 million insurance motive and scientific proof that the bullet came from several feet behind the victim's head, would this evidence be enough to convince you of guilt? Take a moment to leave your thoughts in the comments below. But before you type your answer, consider this. While the doctors were proving murder in the lab, a hidden piece of social bias was about to surface inside the courtroom that changed everything. To understand why this case collapsed, we have to look directly at the perpetrator's criminal psychology and how he calculated his escape. Alfred Monson was a narcissist who understood the rigid class biases of the Victorian legal system. But while investigators analyzed his financial patterns, a hidden piece of behavioral evidence was about to surface through the missing third man, Edward Scott. Police finally traced Edward Scott to a low-rent district in London, but instead of an aristocratic mastermind, they found Scott was a broke, small-time bookmaker's clerk Monson had paid to use a fake name and act as a distraction. Monson didn't bring him along to help shoot. He brought him to muddy the waters of the eyewitness testimony. This is the psychological core of the Ardlamont killer. He operated on a dual frequency, absolute arrogance combined with meticulous logistical planning. He knew that in 1893, the word of a well-spoken upper-class gentleman carried immense weight against the cold, clinical equations of emerging medical professors. Let's bridge this historical psychology directly to modern society. In 1893, Monson relied on social prestige and a confusing, multi-layered financial plot to blind the court to scientific facts. Today, modern white-collar criminals and high-society predators use the same strategy. They hide behind high-priced corporate legal teams, complex shell companies, and public relations firms to manipulate public perception, weaponizing their status to make scientific or digital evidence look like a statistical anomaly to a confused jury. The arena has shifted from Victorian drawing rooms to digital media echo chambers, but the psychological exploitation of privilege remains the same.
On the 10th day of the trial, the Scottish jury returned with a decision that left the public completely stunned. They did not find Alfred Monson innocent, but they did not find him guilty. Instead, they issued the uniquely Scottish verdict of not proven. For international viewers, this verdict is a legal anomaly. It essentially means, we know you did it, but the prosecution didn't manage to cross every single technical hurdle required to hang you. Monson walked out of the court a free man, protected by legal ambiguity. The cultural legacy of this failure is profound. It directly drove Dr. Joseph Bell and Dr. Henry Littlejohn to completely standardize crime scene management across the United Kingdom, establishing the rigid forensic protocols that modern police forces still use today to prevent evidence tampering. Monson's arrogance didn't stop at the courthouse doors. In 1894, he famously sued the world-renowned waxworks museum, Madame Tussauds, for libel after they placed a wax model of him next to their chamber of horrors. He won the lawsuit but was awarded a single farthing, the lowest denomination of currency possible, proving the world knew exactly what he was. True crime can never just be a historical reenactment. It must serve as an analytical lens. When we look back at the Ardlamont mystery, we are forced to confront a structural flaw that still plagues our justice system today. For our pinned comment discussion today, does Scotland's third verdict of not proven serve as a vital safeguard against wrongful convictions? Or does it simply provide a sophisticated escape hatch for wealthy defendants who can afford to obfuscate the truth? The courts may leave the ledger open, but the laws of forensic science never truly lose their voice.